Hey everyone. Welcome to the channel. I'm Six Path Weeb, and I'm thrilled to have you here. Today, we're diving into an exciting fanfic concept. What if Naruko found a hidden power in Konoha? Get ready for an epic twist on the Naruto universe that you won't want to miss. Disclaimer, just a quick reminder, this content is purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their rightful creators and copyright holders. Alright, let's jump in. Enjoy the ride. Come back, you red furball. I didn't finish playing with you yet. Why are you running now? Let's see those fierce teeth. Ha ha ha. Naruko, age 4, was running down the alleyway. She had been ambushed again on the streets. This time, however, things were more intense than the previous encounters. This time, there were dangerous tools involved. After receiving several slashes on her right arm, Naruko ran as fast as she could. Even though she was only 4 years old, her incredible stamina proved to be a great asset to her. Naruko had managed to surprise her pursuers when she resisted being caught. Thanks to this, she managed to gain a bit of a head start. She ran and reached a T section of the road. She looked to her left and right. There were a few men, clearly under the influence, still determined to cause harm. The sound of footsteps behind her grew louder by the second. Naruko looked ahead, seeing her only option, a forgotten clan house. A sealed door lay in front of her. With little time to think, Naruko decided to crash into the door, unaware of the seals placed on it. Her arm burned with agony from the impact. Not knowing what else to do, she pounded her fist on the door, hoping for someone to help her. The footsteps were getting closer, and her luck was running out. She glanced at the seal placed on the door and tried to tear off the tag. Unfortunately, it wouldn't budge, and in the process, some of her blood smeared onto it. Suddenly, a flash of bright light filled the air. Naruko saw the door crack open just a little before she quickly rushed inside the clan house as the door behind her slammed shut. The blood on the tag was absorbed, and the seal was resealed. Outside, the men banged on the door, cursing loudly. Despite the combined strength of several of them, they could not break the small seal. Naruko took a few moments to catch her breath and observe her surroundings. The place had been abandoned for years. No one will know I'm here. And if they find me, I'll think of an excuse, Naruko thought. I can't possibly make the villagers hate me more than they already do. So Naruko decided to explore the area around the clan estate. There was a dried-up swimming pool, at least a dozen bedrooms, and a library full of scrolls. But the best find of all was a stash of instant ramen. With a grin, Naruko decided to make this place her secret hideaway and visit regularly until the ramen ran out. In the following months, Naruko developed a routine. From Monday to Saturday, she would wake up and cook her quick ramen in her apartment. As the village prankster, avoiding notice from higher-ranking ninja wasn't difficult for her. No one really paid attention to Naruko, which allowed her to sneak into what she called her secret base, the mansion, the unknown clan estate she had first discovered during her encounter with the thugs. At first, Naruko had trouble opening the gates. It frustrated her, but it also piqued her curiosity. What had allowed her to open the door in the first place? It wasn't until 2 days later, after much effort and some scrapes on her hands, that she managed to get inside again. Once inside, the mansion was peaceful. Since no one came to chase her out, Naruko continued to visit the clan house regularly. However, Naruko was still the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox, which meant the Hokage made frequent visits to her apartment every Sunday, when he wasn't buried in paperwork. Naruko didn't waste her time idly at the mansion. She often felt lonely and spent her time exploring the enormous library. It was during this time that Naruko decided she wanted to become a ninja. She picked up an old book titled The Guide to Being a Ninja. The book was dusty, but Naruko, being an energetic person, kept reading, though she never got past the first page. The one thing she remembered was, Rule 1, a ninja's greatest weapon is the art of deception. Naruko also studied other books that taught chakra manipulation, which fascinated her. She found herself able to finish these books more easily. Wanting to find a way to ease her loneliness, she learned the shadow clone jutsu from an ancient scroll. With her new skill, Naruko made several clones and enjoyed playing tag and sparring with them. Though there were times when Naruko would go to her secret hiding place out of boredom to test her skills, there were also moments of mischief. She would sometimes set harmless pranks, like sticking someone to a toilet seat, but they were always in good fun. When Naruko turned 5, she woke up one morning to find the people of Konoha in sorrow. The Uchiha clan had been attacked, and only 3 of its members had survived. The attacker was still unknown. As she walked through the streets, Naruko noticed more hateful glares directed at her, as though the tragedy were somehow her fault. Turning a corner, Naruko found herself surrounded by a group of civilians, each holding a bat or metal rod. A year ago, she would have run. A year ago, she would have been frightened. But that was a year ago, and the Naruko that stood there was a different person, stronger and more confident. She knew she had the power to defend herself, but Naruko also knew that a fight could leave her hurt. So, she used her shadow clone to appear on top of a nearby building and performed a kawarimi, substitution, with her clone. The group of civilians, still thinking they had cornered her, began taunting her. They mocked her for several minutes before one of them threw a stone. Naruko's clone dodged the attack. Chaos erupted as the civilians rushed at the clone from all directions. The confusion grew as they couldn't understand where the smoke had come from. The thugs eventually gave up and left, unable to believe a 5-year-old had outwitted them. Meanwhile, Naruko was safely inside the mansion. She had learned from a book that the mansion had belonged to a clan called the Namikaze, which had been wiped out during the Third Shinobi War. The name didn't matter much to Naruko, and she continued with her self-study. Naruko practiced Shunshin no Jutsu, Kawarimi no Jutsu, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and Henge no Jutsu. However, she wasn't able to master the regular Bunshin no Jutsu, no matter how hard she tried. She decided to focus on the more effective Kage Bunshin instead. Using these techniques, Naruko was able to carry out pranks unnoticed. Those who had wronged her, like store owners who charged her too much, were often the victims of her harmless tricks. Naruko, now 6 years old, was strolling through the streets of Konoha early in the morning. It was rare for her to walk in the park, but today felt different. She had read that successful ninjas often meditate, so Naruko decided to try it for herself. She found a quiet clearing, sat cross-legged, and closed her eyes. However, after just 5 minutes, her inner voice reminded her that there were better ways to spend her day. It was still early, so Naruko jumped onto a park bench and stared up at the clouds. At first, it was fascinating, but eventually, she grew tired of gazing at the sky. Naruko decided to head to her favorite spot. On the way, she passed a training ground where a child around her age was practicing with his sensei. The boy, focused on his taijutsu stances against a wooden pole, caught Naruko's attention, even though she suspected the person watching was his father. The stance was new to her, and she was curious about the movements. Naruko wasn't very experienced herself, but what truly caught her eye were the boy's unusual eyes. They were white, and the pupils appeared to vanish into the surroundings as if they didn't exist. Not wanting to stare too long, Naruko decided to move on. She continued her walk through the streets of the village, and by now, the sun was high in the sky. It was noon, and Naruko felt a pang of hunger. Turning a corner, she found herself at Ichiraku Ramen. "Hello, what can I get you?" asked the young waitress behind the counter. Let's see. I'll take one of everything," Naruko said enthusiastically. The waitress raised an eyebrow but smiled. "How about we start with something more suitable for you?" Determined, Naruko replied, "Okay, I'll start with a beef ramen and then order more as I go. Sound good?" The waitress nodded and took her order. After a short wait, a steaming bowl of ramen appeared before her. After the first few mouthfuls, Naruko was convinced that the ramen had to be a divine creation. "This is so good. I need another bowl," Naruko exclaimed. "All right, coming right up," said the waitress with a smile. Naruko grinned. "Hey, I haven't caught your name yet." "Call me Ayame, and my father behind the counter is Tucci," Ayame replied. Naruko's second bowl arrived swiftly, and she devoured it just as quickly. "More please," she called out. Tucci, smiling, remarked, "You've got quite an appetite for someone your age. Your ramen is amazing. Can I have another?" Naruko asked eagerly. Tucci chuckled. "You're quite the eater. Young kids are usually encouraged to eat more vegetables. Would you like to try our new vegetable ramen? Many others have given it positive reviews." "Sure. I'll try it," Naruko said, excited to try something new. By the time Naruko was full, she had consumed 5 bowls of ramen, a feat few could manage. As she went to pay, she pulled out some notes from her pocket. She had found them in a drawer at the old clan house. Though she hadn't exactly earned the money, Naruko promised herself she would repay it when she became successful on higher-level ninja missions. Back at the abandoned clan house, Naruko retrieved the scroll she had been working on. Unfortunately, she couldn't make sense of most of it. She could barely understand a small part of the jutsu. "Stupid jutsu scroll," Naruko muttered, frustrated. Whoever wrote this must have been so stubborn to make it so confusing. She put the scroll aside and decided to learn more about the strange eyes of the boy she'd seen earlier. She realized that he belonged to the Hyuga clan, a respected family known for their contributions to Konoha and their unique bloodline. Then, it hit her, it was Sunday. Oh no, Naruko thought, panic rising. The Hokage would be visiting her house soon. There was no way she could make it back in time, not even with a shunshine. In a flash, Naruko performed a shunshine and rushed to a hidden spot near her apartment. She sprinted to the door, only to find the Hokage already settled comfortably on her couch. "Hello, Naruko-chan. Where have you been?" asked Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Hokage. "I was just wandering around," Naruko replied with a smile. Sarutobi frowned, a little concerned. Earlier that day, he had attempted to check on Naruko using his crystal ball, but she had been nowhere to be found. There were only two possibilities: either there were seals blocking the crystal ball, or she was outside the village walls. The first option seemed unlikely, so Sarutobi grew more worried. "Naruko, let's be honest with each other. Where were you this morning?" Sarutobi asked, his voice carrying a hint of authority. Naruko, the village's notorious prankster, put on her most innocent and cute face. "I was lost on the road of life." Sarutobi sighed, recognizing that familiar excuse. "Can you come up with something better?" he asked. Naruko scratched her head, a mischievous smile on her face. "Well, I spent 3 hours thinking of that one. I could disappear for another 3 and try again." Sarutobi facepalmed, exasperated. "Please don't do that, Naruko." Reluctantly, Sarutobi asked again, "Where were you really?" Naruko didn't want to reveal her secret hideout, so she came up with a simpler answer. "I was playing ninja, but there was no one to play with, so I went to the park and threw stones at a log." Sarutobi sighed, feeling that he wasn't getting the full truth, but decided to let it go. The atmosphere felt tense, so Naruko quickly shifted the topic. "Hey, Gigi, can I be a ninja now?" Sarutobi smiled gently. "You're still too young to enter the academy, Naruko. It's too dangerous at your age." "But I saw kids my age training at the academy," Naruko protested. "Those kids come from well-known clans and have special permission to start early," Sarutobi explained. "They've been training since they were very young, with help from their parents." Naruko wasn't satisfied with the answer. "Then why don't you train me?" she asked. Sarutobi laughed softly. "Naruko, as Hokage, I have many responsibilities. If I trained you, I'd have hundreds of other kids asking for the same." Naruko's face fell slightly, but she quickly switched to her sad expression, hoping to get Sarutobi to change his mind. Seeing her about to burst into tears, Sarutobi relented. "All right, if you really want to train to be a ninja, I can find you a tutor." Naruko's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected that. She didn't want to spend time with a tutor who might not teach her what she wanted to know. Still, she didn't want to disappoint the Hokage. "Thanks, Gigi. When do I start?" she asked, trying to hide her concern. Sarutobi thought for a moment. "Go to Training Ground 23 tomorrow at 9 a.m. Here's a map." Naruko took the map and studied it before thanking Sarutobi as he left. As Sarutobi walked out, he thought to himself, "Now where am I going to find a tutor for Naruko?" The sun rose the next morning, gently streaming through Naruko's sleepy eyes. Groaning as she woke up, Naruko quickly prepared her 3-minute ramen while brushing her teeth at the same time. She was still half asleep when she took out her chopsticks. It wasn't until the delicious ramen entered Naruko's mouth that her eyes snapped open, and she was fully awake. Naruko glanced down at her watch. It read, 9:30. "Crap, I'm late again," thought Naruko. "My punctuality is slipping. I need to fix this." Naruko performed a shunshine to get closer to Training Ground 23. When she arrived, she saw a Jonin leaning against a tree. The Jonin scowled as he saw Naruko approaching. "You're the kid cough I'm supposed to teach, I suppose," said the Jonin. "I guess so. The Hokage sent me here, after all," Naruko replied. "My name's Kof Hayate, and I suppose you're Naruko," said Hayate. "Yep." Naruko responded cheerfully. "All right, let me tell you the Kof truth. I'm not too keen on teaching Kof kids this young, but since the Hokage Kof sincerely asked me and offered a Kof good pay, I suppose I can't refuse." "It's not like I want to be here either," thought Naruko, but she kept her smile on. "So, what am I going to learn first?" "Normally, I would Kof test out my students first, but since we're starting from scratch, I don't think that's necessary." "So, what would you like to Kof learn about?" asked Hayate. "I'm not sure. But can I try the katana on your back? Naruko asked eagerly. A katana is pretty dangerous for a 6-year-old, Hayate answered. Please, can I just swing it once? Naruko pleaded. No, Naruko, let's start with something a bit more basic, Hayate said firmly. Just one swing, please. Naruko begged. What a persistent kid, thought Hayate. I guess that's how she got the Hokage to assign me as her teacher. Alright, tell you what, Naruko. I'll give you a test. If you pass, I'll take you to a weapon store and get you a practice sword. Oh, thank you, Hayate-sensei, Naruko cried, her eyes sparkling. It's Hayate-sensei, Hayate corrected her. Besides, you haven't passed the test yet. Okay. So, what is the test? Hayate thought for a moment before answering. I want you to find 4 cookies in a jar and a bottle of hot tea. Naruko's sweat dropped. He wants me to get his breakfast. Oh, by the way, you have 20 minutes to complete the task. If you fail, we'll start with basic training instead of the sword. Yes. It's yes, sensei, Naruko. Yes, sensei. Naruko couldn't believe it. Was her sensei joking? Nevertheless, once Hayate was out of sight, Naruko used a shunshine to head straight for the market. Naruko entered a store, bought 4 cookies, and a cup of hot tea, before quickly returning to the outskirts of Training Ground 23 using another shunshine. Here you go, Naruko said, grinning. Wow. That's impressive. You made it there and back in only 10 minutes, Hayate said, surprised. As Hayate reached for the cookies and tea, Naruko stepped back and crossed her arms. Money first, she cried. How much? Hayate asked, confused. Here's the bill. Take a look at it yourself, Naruko answered, proudly showing the bill. Hayate glanced at the bill, and his eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. That's insane. Tea and cookies don't cost this much, he shouted. It doesn't? I always get charged this much, Naruko said innocently. Naruko, you pass, but we're going to that store you just visited, Hayate said, his tone now a bit annoyed. The two walked toward the Konoha market. When they reached the tea shop, Hayate slammed the bill on the counter in front of the shopkeeper. Explain yourself. My girlfriend comes here every day and she gets charged 3 times less, Hayate said, a little angry. The shopkeeper was taken aback, unsure how to respond. Oh. The shopkeeper stammered. Oh no. Return the extra money. But if my student gets overcharged again, I'll make sure it doesn't happen a second time, Hayate warned firmly. Why yes. Of course. Here's the extra money, the shopkeeper said, trembling a little. Hayate took the money and handed it to Naruko, along with the extra money she was owed. The two continued their way to the weapon store. Naruko stood frozen outside the famous weapon shop in Konoha. Hayate gave her a gentle push, urging her to go inside. Once inside, they wandered through the aisles until they reached the katana section. Naruko eagerly picked up one of the sharper blades, but Hayate stopped her. This is a good training sword, Hayate said, handing her a wooden sword with dull edges. Naruko frowned at the wooden sword. She had hoped for something sharper. But when Hayate gave her one of those listen to me or else looks, Naruko sighed. It seemed she had no choice but to stick with the wooden sword for now. Alrighty, Hayate-sensei, Naruko said with a resigned sigh. It's just Hayate, he corrected her. The two left the store and stepped out into the sun's warmth. Alright, Naruko, I'm a busy guy, so let's meet here at the same time next week. Don't be late. Yes, sensei. Goodbye, Naruko replied enthusiastically. Naruko looked up at the sky, feeling content, and decided to head back to her special place for a while. Once there, she looked around to make sure no one was around. She then opened the door with a quick technique and entered. After a bit of searching, she finally found the armory. Naruko's eyes widened at the sight of the numerous katanas on display. Wow! I should have just saved my money and skipped the wooden swords. Look at all these amazing katanas. I feel a little silly now. But deep down, Naruko was genuinely excited to learn how to wield a katana. Naruko, age 7, was lying on her back, exhausted from her weekly katana training with Hayate. You're improving, Naruko, but your left knee needs to bend more when you do a horizontal slash, said Hayate, who was now packing up. We'll call it a day. I've got to go handle something important. Okay, sensei, Naruko said as she got up and began walking down the streets of Konoha. As usual, Hateful glares followed Naruko like a magnet. She often wondered what she had done to be treated this way. Sure, she played pranks now and then, but nothing too severe, except for the time someone got stuck in a tree, hanging face first towards the ground for the whole night. Things had changed for the better ever since Hayate became her tutor. Naruko now saw the benefits of having a high-ranking shinobi teaching her. It felt like having a protector whenever they roamed the streets of Konoha together. No one dared approach Naruko after they heard the story of how two civilians learned the hard way. Naruko recalled the incident all too well. Flashback. About 6 months after Hayate started teaching Naruko Kenjutsu, they decided to celebrate as Naruko had finally managed to last 3 minutes in Hayate's easy sparring exercises. On their way to Ichiraku Ramen, 2 drunken men began to taunt Naruko. "Hey, Foxy, get out of our town or I'll make you regret it," slurred one of the drunks, swaying as he spoke. "Your dogs wouldn't want bones like that," laughed the other drunk. Normally, Naruko would have ignored them and gone on with her day. But this time, she was with a jonin she trusted. So Naruko put on her sad mask and looked down. Hayate, seeing that Naruko was emotionally hurt, marched up to the 2 drunks. "Hey, who do you think you're talking to? Do you know who I am?" "Another joke who hangs out with the foxy girl and only knows how to cough," said the first drunk, clearly unaware of the forehead protector Hayate wore. And so, Hayate, seeing the situation, knocked out the 2 drunks. When the 2 men awoke, they found their legs bound together with rope, their arms tangled up, and a note pinned to their backs: "Help these 2 fools and you might end up on my don't mess with list." Signed, Konoha's renowned prankster. It didn't take much to figure out who was behind it. Naruko found the situation quite hilarious, and even Hayate couldn't help but laugh, though it was followed by a few coughs. Flashback ends. Naruko headed toward her apartment. Ever since the Hokage had visited her, asking about her whereabouts, she had been visiting her hiding place less frequently. When she did go, she made sure to create a shadow clone before leaving so that no one would know where she was. Despite her enormous chakra reserves for her age, Naruko had her limits. Half her chakra went into the clone, which lasted only for a few hours, and the rest was used to travel via sunshine. After factoring all of this in, Naruko didn't have much chakra left. So, she decided to visit the abandoned clan house once a week and take whatever books she wanted to study before returning them. The abandoned house had essentially become Naruko's personal library. Naruko had become quite adept with storage seals after reading The Beginner's Guide to Fuuin Jutsu, a complex book for beginners. She had mastered the first seal, the storage seal, and had a lot of fun experimenting with it. Sometimes she would store one storage seal inside another, but this often led to funny problems, like spending hours searching for her instant ramen after sealing it inside multiple scrolls. One morning, Naruko wanted to practice with her katana in an open training ground. However, the training sword didn't appeal to her. Instead, she decided to use a real katana from her storage scrolls, which she had taken from the abandoned clan house's armory. The training ground she was familiar with was Training Ground 23, so she used sunshine to get there quickly, making sure not to be seen. Naruko took the real katana and swung it a few times. She knew she had picked a good one by how it moved through the air, but something about it didn't feel quite right. She couldn't quite place what was bothering her. Meanwhile, at the Hokage's tower, Hiruzen Sarutobi was observing the village through his crystal ball. He had several candidates he wanted to keep an eye on, but in the end, he decided to focus on Naruko. He watched as she practiced her katana techniques. "She's working hard," he thought with a smile. It wasn't the first time he had watched her train with Hayate, and he'd seen Naruko's growth over time. But when Hiruzen saw that Naruko was no longer using her regular training katana and had instead picked up a real one, his expression darkened. What was Hayate thinking, letting her handle such a dangerous weapon at her age? He thought, his concern growing. "I can't let this continue. I can't risk her injuring herself. It's time to step in." A week passed, and Naruko woke up early in the morning to start her routine, brushing her teeth and boiling water for ramen. After a while, Naruko shunshined to the outskirts of Training Ground 23. Hayate, ever punctual, was already there. "Good cough morning, Naruko. For a warm-up, I want you to buy me a bouquet of flowers." Naruko stared at him, puzzled. He can't be serious, can he? Ugh. It happens every week. Last week, it was 3 cartons of eggs, and I had to dodge them while practicing my stances. This time, you pay me beforehand, and I'll give you the change, Naruko teased. This kid is getting smarter every day, Hayate thought. I suppose it's only because of my influence. Alright, here's the cough money, Hayate said, handing her the cash. Don't cheat me. I want to see the receipt. No worries. Naruko sprinted across the training field to the flower shop. As usual, Naruko was nervous entering shops since the reactions of shopkeepers were often unpredictable. Inside, she saw a young girl with long blonde hair sitting behind the counter, around her age. Hi there. How can I help you? The girl asked, giving Naruko a friendly smile. Can I buy a bouquet of flowers? Naruko asked, clenching her fists nervously. What kind of flowers are you looking for? The girl asked. I think you'd want something special. Naruko felt a bit lost. I'm not sure about the types of flowers, she admitted. Well, different flowers symbolize different things. What's the occasion? The girl asked, playing with her long hair. Maybe. For friendship? Naruko said, unsure. Yellow roses would be perfect for that, the girl suggested. Wow, thanks. For a moment, I thought my tutor would get mad if I picked the wrong flowers, Naruko laughed. Never mind what I was thinking, the girl said suddenly, covering her mouth, realizing her mistake. Here you go. A bouquet of yellow roses. Just leave your money on the counter. Naruko paid the girl and headed toward the door. Wait. The girl called. My name is Ino. I never got your name. Naruko turned back at the door. Oh, my name is Naruko. Nice to meet you. I've got to run now. With that, Naruko quickly left the shop. Alright, here's the money, said Hayate as he handed the cash over to Naruko. Don't cheat me. I want to see the receipt. No worries. Hayate watched Naruko sprint across the training field toward the flower shop. As Naruko disappeared into the distance, he laid down on the grass, watching the clouds drift by. If only life could go on like this, helping young ninjas and getting paid this well. Hayate's moment of peace was soon interrupted by an intruder. An Anbu appeared beside Hayate. Hayate, you are to report to the Hokage's office immediately, the Anbu said. Before Hayate could respond, the Anbu vanished with a shunshine. Strange, the Hokage scheduled all my Monday mornings with Naruko, thought Hayate. Hayate arrived at the Hokage tower and knocked on the door to the Hokage's office. Upon entering, he saw Hiruzen Sarutobi sitting in his ancient chair, stroking his white beard. Hayate, do you know why I called you here today? Asked Sarutobi. No, Hokage-sama, replied Hayate with a hint of concern. I hope it's not about asking Naruko to do my morning chores. It's nothing related to Naruko, if that's what you're thinking, said the third Hokage, emphasizing the point. Phew, thought Hayate, relaxing and slipping his hands into his pockets. Our spies have gathered information about a new village emerging in the Land of Sound. Rumors say its name is Otogakaru, Hiruzen explained. So you want me to investigate the village? Asked Hayate. No, that's already being handled. I've dispatched a squad of Anbu, declared Hiruzen, still smoking his pipe. Then what is it that made you summon me here? Asked Hayate. Our relationship with Kiri is weakening, as with the other major villages. I want you to serve as Konoha's temporary ambassador and visit all the villages on this list, Sarutobi said, handing Hayate an envelope. You will be accompanied by 3 other jonin. Do you accept the mission? Yes, but what about Naruko? Asked Hayate. Naruko is almost of the right age to enter the academy. Once she does, she will be busy, and the academy's teachers will assist her with any questions, Sarutobi replied. Alright, I suppose. I'm going to miss that girl. She's quite the character once you get past the challenges, Hayate sighed. Well, I just hope Naruko doesn't go overboard with the katana while you're away. When I first assigned you to be her tutor, I didn't expect her to be learning swordsmanship so early, Sarutobi commented. Ah, Naruko was really persistent. It's hard to say no to a determined child, chuckled Hayate. I just don't want our future generations swinging sharp swords around before they even enter the academy, Sarutobi said with a serious tone, taking another puff from his pipe. The katana she's using isn't very sharp, Hayate responded, trying to ease the situation. Yes, but I still worry about her safety, Sarutobi said with a warm smile. Isn't it sharp? Hayate, I know you wield katanas that can cut through trees, but the one Naruko's holding is probably just slightly duller. I have one more question before I leave, Hayate said. Yes? Do I receive rank S pay, rank A pay, or rank B pay for this mission? Sarutobi chuckled. I'll pay you rank A. Leave in 2 hours. Take as long as you need for this mission. Hi, cough Hokage-sama. And so, Hayate vanished with a shunshine toward Training Ground 23. Meanwhile, Naruko was sitting on a log in Training Ground 23, waiting for her sensei to return from whatever errand he had disappeared to. This is ridiculous, thought Naruko. He sent me off to do his shopping and then vanished while I was left to do all that work. Just as Naruko was about to leave, a swirl of leaves appeared, and Hayate materialized. "Sensei, where have you been?" shouted an angry Naruko. "Naruko, You left me here for 1 whole hour by myself." "Naruko, And I had to start peeling the petals off the flowers to see if you were coming back or not." "You did what?" "And then I had to go to the market again to buy more," Naruko exclaimed, now taking a deep breath. "So you'll have to pay me back for these flowers." "That's your fault for peeling off flowers. And what kind of person peels flowers just to see when their sensei is coming back?" Hayate retorted. "So? Pay me, or I'll tell Yugao Uzuki that you've been sending a 7-year-old to buy flowers for her because you can't figure out which type she likes," Naruko threatened. Hayate's face turned pale as he processed Naruko's words. How did you know?" Hayate stammered. "It's obvious," Naruko responded. "And why haven't you been coughing like you always do?" "I cough because I want to," Hayate answered, slipping several notes into Naruko's outstretched hand. Naruko's sweat dropped. It seemed she had been fooled for an entire year into thinking Hayate was sick. "One more thing," Hayate declared. "Hokage-sama has granted me a mission, and I've accepted it. I don't know how long I'll be gone, and it breaks my heart to say this, but this will be our last training session." Naruko looked up at her sensei. Over the past year, she hadn't always wanted these weekly sessions, but the longer they went on, the more attached she grew to Hayate. He was one of the few people who really cared about her. Naruko removed her mask and was on the verge of tears. "It's okay, Naruko. I won't be gone forever. I'll be back one day," said Hayate, gently patting her on the head. "Promise?" "Yes, I promise." And so, Naruko and Hayate left Training Ground 23, walking in opposite directions. Just before Naruko disappeared in a swirl of leaves, she turned around and saw her sensei doing the same. "Hayate-sensei, when you return, spar with me again and I promise I won't hold back," Naruko shouted, her eyes teary. Hayate gave her a thumbs up before vanishing with a shunshine. Naruko did the same and headed back to her apartment. Meanwhile, at the Hokage Tower, Hiruzen Sarutobi observed the scene unfold before him. "Did I make a mistake by separating them? I hope this isn't a decision I come to regret." Naruko was back in her apartment, peacefully asleep in her dream world, not yet ready to face the reality outside. But she had made a promise to herself, to train harder than ever before. Naruko opened the beginner's guide to Fuin Jutsu and turned to the second seal she had mastered, the gravity seal. With great care, she drew the seals on her legs and arms, using a shadow clone to assist with the ones on her arms. Then, Naruko focused her chakra to activate the seals. She carefully poured a small amount of chakra into them, intentionally making her body feel heavier. However, Naruko wasn't finished yet. She drew another gravity seal, this time placing it on her katana. It had been 6 months since Naruko last saw Hayate. Since that time, the pranks around the village had subsided. At first, the peaceful atmosphere was appreciated by most, but over time, a few villagers who had no hard feelings toward Naruko began to miss the mischief she once caused. However, the majority of the villagers were simply glad that the playful fox had quieted down. Hiruzen sat in his office, gazing out the window thoughtfully. "Where could you be, Naruko?" he wondered. Despite his attempts to locate her through his crystal ball, he had met with little success. Naruko had disappeared ever since he had sent Hayate on a diplomatic mission. Hiruzen had considered calling Hayate back, but given his prior discussions with the council, changing his decision would have made him seem indecisive, and the council might pressure him toward retirement. Not that Hiruzen had any objections to retirement, but he couldn't find anyone capable enough to step into his shoes. "I'd rather see Naruko missing a few limbs from training with a sharp katana than to not see her at all," Hiruzen mused, taking another puff from his pipe, imagining how she might look in such a scenario. Then again, maybe it would be better if she disappears for a while and returns in one piece. Hiruzen had also dispatched his top Onbu to search for Naruko outside of Konoha, as he suspected that she had left the village. Unfortunately, either Naruko had covered her tracks expertly, or she had not left Konoha at all. He refrained from informing the village council about their Jinchuriki's disappearance, fearing it might cause panic. However, there was one person he couldn't stop worrying about, Danzo. What if Danzo has recruited Naruko into Root? Hiruzen thought, a cold sweat forming on his brow. If that's the case, he might use Naruko as a tool in the future, claiming he has tamed the Jinchuriki, thus giving him more political power. Og. I'm overthinking this, Hiruzen muttered aloud to himself. It's Sunday afternoon, and paperwork is at a minimum level, a rare and peaceful time. I'll just take a walk to clear my mind. With that, Hiruzen left the tower and wandered through the streets. As he walked, his thoughts still lingered on Naruko. He found himself making turns that led him in unexpected directions, eventually coming to a stop in front of the abandoned Namikaze clan estate. It was October 8th, just 2 days before Naruko would turn 8 years old. Hiruzen sighed as he sat behind his desk, finishing up the last stack of paperwork. There's nothing urgent left, thought Hiruzen. I should take a walk around the village before more paperwork piles up. Hiruzen stepped out of the Hokage tower and into the bustling village. His mind was heavy with thoughts of the village's well-being, but he couldn't shake off his concern for Naruko. He walked until he reached the memorial stone, his gaze fixed on the carved names, wondering if Minato and Kushina could ever forgive him if Naruko was never found. As Hiruzen stood lost in thought, he noticed Hatake Kakashi standing nearby, seemingly deep in contemplation. Ah, Kakashi. I was wondering where you were. He's late for his appointment again, Hiruzen mused. Lost on the road of life, Kakashi? Asked Hiruzen with a gentle smile. No, Hokage-sama, I was helping a cat who was being chased by a dog, Kakashi replied, looking up as he realized who was speaking. Why don't I give you the mission details here, then? Hiruzen suggested. It'll save you the trouble of heading to the tower and wasting more time. That sounds good, Hokage-sama, Kakashi agreed. Around 6 months ago, our Jinchuriki, Naruko, vanished without a trace, Hiruzen began, gesturing for Kakashi to listen closely. It's been nearly 8 years, and I have a feeling she may show up somewhere in the village soon. I need you to search for her. Do not confront her, just observe. This mission is classified as an S-rank secret, and no questions should be asked. Understood? Understood, Hokage-sama, Kakashi replied with a firm nod. Naruko, Minato's daughter. This feels like more than just a coincidence. I need to find her. With that, Hiruzen returned to the Hokage tower while Kakashi began his search. 2 hours later, Kakashi found himself standing in front of an old, abandoned estate, once home to the Namikaze clan. This place brings back memories, Kakashi thought, recalling the days when Minato, his sensei, was still alive. He hesitated before approaching the door. The building had been sealed long ago by Minato himself, allowing only those with his bloodline to enter. But something was odd. Kakashi noticed a faint, dried stain on the seal. Could this be a sign? Kakashi wondered, unsure of what to make of the discovery. He didn't want to call out Naruko's name and risk embarrassing himself, so he kept his thoughts to himself, but made a mental note to mention this to the Hokage later. As Kakashi pondered the situation, he felt an uneasy weight in his heart. What had happened to Minato's daughter? He couldn't shake the feeling of dread that gnawed at him. After a while, Kakashi teleported to the Hokage tower, eager to report his findings. When he arrived, he noticed that a new picture of Naruko had been placed on Hiruzen's desk, but it was quickly turned face down by the Hokage. Report, Hiruzen said in a serious tone. Hokage-sama, I believe Naruko might have found her way to the Namikaze clan estate, Kakashi said carefully. The seal there had a strange mark, like someone had been there recently. The Namikaze clan estate, Hiruzen exclaimed, his eyes widening. I should have known. No wonder we've had difficulty tracking her. We must investigate at once. We'll need blood from a Namikaze, but all members of the clan have passed away, Kakashi added. I have a sample of Minato's blood, kept in case of an emergency, Hiruzen explained. Let's go. We need to see this through. The two left immediately, Hiruzen holding the blood sample. After a short teleportation, they arrived at the door of the Namikaze estate. Hiruzen smeared the blood onto the seal, and with a crackling sound, the seal released its hold on the door, allowing it to open. Inside, the estate appeared untouched by time, save for the leaves and dust that scattered the floor. Yet, Kakashi's sharp eyes quickly spotted fresh footprints, leading them toward the main building. At the entrance to the main building, Hiruzen used the blood sample once more to break the seal on the door. It cracked open, revealing signs of recent use. Empty ramen bowls lay scattered around the floor. I haven't been here in a long time, Hiruzen murmured as he walked deeper into the estate. Naruko. Are you here? Kakashi called out as well, "Naruko, are you here?" The sound of silence answered them. The two shared a look, understanding that they needed to search further. Kakashi immediately thought of the estate's library, a treasure trove of knowledge that the Namikaze clan had long protected. "Let's check the library," Hiruzen said, leading the way. But upon entering, they found many of the scrolls missing. Half the collection had vanished. "It looks like Naruko inherited more from her father than we thought," Hiruzen said quietly, disappointed with himself for not realizing this sooner. Kakashi couldn't help but wonder, "Naruko, what have you been up to? How strong have you become? How long have you been training in secret?" "There's a chance she's still in the estate," Hiruzen said, his voice steady. "Kakashi, you take the north and west houses. I'll search the main building, south, and east. We'll meet in 30 minutes. Use your shadow clones to help." "Yes, Hokage-sama," Kakashi responded, setting off immediately. Hiruzen couldn't help but think, Naruko better not be hiding from us on purpose. Finding her won't be easy, but I won't give up. 30 minutes later, two ninjas met in the center of the estate. "Any sign of Naruko?" asked Hiruzen, hope gleaming in his eyes. "No, Hokage-sama," replied Kakashi, who met the Hokage's gaze, knowing Naruko had not been found. Both Kakashi and Hiruzen looked up at the sky, their thoughts mirroring each other, wondering if it would help to ask the kami where Naruko was. They felt disheartened, both thinking, "Naruko, where are you?" 2 days later, somewhere in the Whirlpool country, a young girl lay on the ground, sweating and panting from the morning training exercises. "Well, that's the end of the morning practice, I guess. October 10th. My birthday. I suppose. But seeing how I never got any gifts, except from a couple of people, I guess I'll just have to give a special gift to Konoha as a reminder of what an exceptional day it is," said the girl with a faint smile, though she felt incredibly lonely inside, wishing for a companion to appear by her side and offer comfort. Naruko packed up her things, preparing to leave. The last 6 months had been life-changing for her. These months had impacted her more than any other part of her life. Naruko loved and cherished her temporary home in the country, but she knew it was time to return to Konoha, where the people who truly cared, no matter how small that number was, would be worried about her. She had never imagined staying in this place for half a year. She had only planned on staying for a week, but the unexpected week turned into months. As Naruko finished packing, she walked to a specific spot, closed her eyes, and disappeared in a flash. When she opened her eyes, Naruko found herself back at the Namikaze estate. The first thing Naruko thought about as she steadied herself was to observe her surroundings and the Hokage. How would the old man react to her 6-month disappearance? But before anything else could happen, she decided she must announce her arrival to the residents of Konoha. She briefly thought about painting the Hokage monument, but it would be boring, and someone might catch her in the act. While continuing to walk toward the big doors that led to the rest of the world, an idea struck her. Kyoto Uchiha, age 8, was enjoying an ice cream that her stepmother had bought her after morning training. Mikoto Uchiha, Kyoto's stepmother and the mother of Sasuke, was standing at the counter in the sweet shop, buying a sealed pack of ice cream for her son, who was still training in the clan compound. "Mother," Kyoto said, nudging her mother's arm. "Yes, my dear?" Mikoto asked without turning around. Look, Kyoto exclaimed, jumping up and down to get her mother's full attention. "Look at what?" Mikoto asked, still focused on the ice cream selections. "The Hokage monument," Kyoto cried. Someone added a fifth head. "What?" Mikoto exclaimed, now giving her full attention to her stepdaughter. She looked up into the distance, and sure enough, another face had been added to the monument. It was a face of a young girl, but one Mikoto recognized all too well. Forgetting about the ice cream, Mikoto took her daughter's hand and led her outside. Already, people in the streets had seen the monument and were in an uproar, demanding that the young girl be found, scolded, and removed from Konoha. Meanwhile, at the Hokage Tower, Hiruzen could only watch from his window at the chaos on the streets. "Well, at least Minato can forgive me now. I hope the people down there can do the same." Hiruzen snapped his fingers, releasing a spark of chakra, and 4 Anbu materialized with a flash. "I need you to gather 50 other Anbu to calm the civilians, and 4 more to catch the culprit. Once the person is found, I want them brought to my office without harm," he said with emphasis. Another snap of his fingers, and the Anbu disappeared with a flash. Back on the busy streets of Konoha, where people were still rioting about the young girl, Mikoto noticed that Kyoto had gone missing. Her hand had slipped from the pushing and shoving of the crowd. Kyoto had been separated from her mother, and Mikoto was nowhere in sight. The crowd was confusing, and Kyoto had been pushed to the outer edges of the commotion. While glad to be away from the massive crowd, she frowned, realizing her mother was still inside. Determined to end the shouting, Kyoto put on a brave face and marched up the mountain. As Kyoto approached the fifth face, she noticed the whisker-like markings on the cheeks. This girl isn't bad looking at all. And now that I think of it, her appearance really resembles the fourth Hokage. Kyoto bent down and picked up a rock, juggling it in her hands. She wondered how such a face could have been carved from the rock in just one morning without anyone noticing. The mystery was solved when Kyoto threw the rock at the fifth face, and it disappeared in a cloud of smoke. "Oh, come on," cried a young voice behind Kyoto. "You ruined all the fun. I spent so much chakra making that." Kyoto turned around and saw a girl around her age with the same face as the one she had seen earlier. "So it was you who did that?" Rather than being angry like the rest of the village, Kyoto was impressed. This young girl, who hadn't even entered the academy, had enough chakra to perform a jutsu of this caliber. "How did you do that?" Kyoto asked, her face full of curiosity as she walked closer to the girl. "Oh, I just made a clone using a henge," Naruko replied, growing nervous as she had never been this close to someone of the opposite gender. "Really? It's that simple?" Kyoto asked, wide-eyed. "Wow, you must be really strong. What's your name?" "Oh, my name is Naruko," answered Naruko with a hurried tone unfamiliar to her. Naruko had never had a girl approach her with such initiative, least of all a girl around her age. The memory of the encounter at the flower shop years ago was different, though. Back then, Naruko was acting on someone else's behalf. In a way, Naruko was never at the flower shop, she was just filling in for Hayate-sensei. Naruko often felt isolated, as though she were trapped in a hole with no one to help her escape. "Pardon me?" asked the girl, flashing an innocent smile and interrupting Naruko's train of thought. "I didn't quite catch what you said last." Naruko, cheeks flushing and nervously scratching the back of her head, tried to calm herself and put on a confident mask, but found it difficult to do so. "My name is Naruko," Naruko answered slowly, emphasizing each syllable of her name, her nervousness still evident as she tried to collect her thoughts. "Hello, Naruko. My name is Kyoto, nice to meet you," replied Kyoto, still with her warm, genuine smile. "Are you planning to join the academy?" "I just turned 8 today, so I'll be going to apply for it," Naruko answered more calmly, relaxing a little. "This girl calls Hokage-sama Gigi?" Kyoto thought, glancing up thoughtfully. She must have a special relationship with the Hokage. It's strange, though, I've never heard of her before. Before Kyoto could invite Naruko to her home, a swirl of leaves appeared, and in their place stood 4 Anbu agents along with Kyoto's mother. Mikoto hurried over and embraced her daughter. "I thought I was going to lose you, just like I lost Itachi and everyone else," Mikoto said, tears welling in her eyes. "It's okay, I'm fine," Kyoto reassured her, pulling away gently. "I just got separated from the crowd and wanted to find you. I couldn't find you in time, so I decided to go up the mountain and erase the image on the cliff. That's where I met Naruko." Kyoto pointed to where Naruko had been standing, but she had already disappeared. "Naruko?" Mikoto asked, snapping out of her worry. "You mean the girl whose face appeared on the mountain?" "Yes, that's her," Kyoto confirmed. Mikoto's expression turned serious. "Kyoto, I want you to promise me, never, ever go near that girl again. Don't interact with her, don't even look at her. Do you understand?" Mikoto said, her gaze intense as she looked into her daughter's eyes. "But why, mother? She seems nice to me," Kyoto protested, defending her opinion. "Kyoto, Naruko caused quite a stir in Konoha in just one day. What kind-hearted person would do something like that?" Mikoto insisted, trying to persuade her daughter. "Don't you trust me?" "I guess so," Kyoto responded, though she still wasn't entirely convinced that Naruko was trouble. Meanwhile, Naruko was brought back to Hokage Hiruzen's office by the Anbu. "Hello, Gigi, it's been a while." Naruko greeted with a wide grin. "Naruko. Where have you been?" the third Hokage asked, his voice raised in surprise, making Naruko wince and cover her ears. Once the Hokage finished speaking, Naruko began to explain. "I was just walking home when I saw a lost dog. I tried to approach it, but it ran off, so I followed it and ended up getting lost," Naruko explained sheepishly. The Hokage sighed and rubbed his forehead in frustration. "Naruko, there's a time for jokes, and this is not one of them. Alright, I'll be serious. I went to train since no one in Konoha would train me, Naruko replied more earnestly. But where did you go? Hiruzen asked, still curious. Naruko hesitated, not wanting to give a direct answer, so she changed the subject. Why didn't you tell me that my father was the fourth Hokage, and that my mother was part of the Uzumaki clan from the Whirlpool country? Naruko asked, hoping to get the Hokage to feel guilty. Hiruzen paused, his gaze falling to the floor. A heavy silence lingered between them. Naruko, we kept this secret to protect you, Hiruzen explained after a long moment. I truly wanted to tell you, but doing so could have put you in danger. Can you forgive me for that? Naruko looked up at the ceiling, lost in thought. She had asked herself this same question many times, struggling to find an answer. There had been many sleepless nights as she tried to piece everything together. Yes, I can, Naruko finally said with a sigh. There's no point holding grudges against one of the few people who cares for me. I only ask that you don't share this with anyone else. Also, I'd like to be able to visit the Namikaze clan estate whenever I want without sneaking in. And I'd prefer to keep my surname as Uzumaki for now. I'll tell everyone about my heritage when I'm ready. Is that all? Hiruzen asked, raising an eyebrow. I can easily grant those requests, plus a few more if you'd like. Naruko grinned. I'd like to join the academy now that I'm 8, and I want to have ramen every day at Ichiraku's, for free. The Hokage sighed. Naruko, you're growing up, you need to eat healthy, with fruits and vegetables. Eating ramen every day will stunt your growth, and you won't be as tall as me, he said, trying to reason with her. Naruko already knew what his response would be, but she tried her luck anyway. Alright, Gigi, I'll take my leave now. I'll be starting at the academy tomorrow. See you. But before Naruko could leave, the Hokage stopped her. Wait, Naruko. You still haven't answered my question. Where have you been for the past 6 months? As Hokage, it's my responsibility to know where my future ninjas are. Naruko turned back to look at him. Everyone has the right to privacy, whether they're a civilian or a ninja. Hiruzen nodded, understanding her perspective. Naruko, you don't have to share every detail. I just want a general idea of where you've been, and how you managed to evade my Anbu. Naruko met the Hokage's gaze and remembered that she could trust him. After a moment, she walked back to the desk, pulled up a chair, and sat down. Well, if you're going to insist, I guess I'll tell you the whole story. It's going to be a long one. Flashback. Naruko had finally completed enhancing her katana, making it significantly heavier with gravity seals. Feeling bored and restless, she pulled a book from her seals at random, hoping to pass the time with a bit of reading. But why read when there were so many other things she could do? The truth was, Naruko had no friends or companions in her age group, and so reading became her way of killing time. Throughout her younger years, the adults in her village had warned the children to stay away from her whenever she got too close. All she wanted was to make friends and play, but no one ever did. Naruko often remembered how other children had parents who would push them on swings, while she had none. Coming back to the present, Naruko glanced at the book she had opened, or more accurately, a diary. The title read, The Uzumaki and Namikaze Clan by Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze. She tried to open it, but the book wouldn't budge. Naruko, feeling frustrated with the many recent misfortunes in her life, could barely tolerate one more disappointment, even if it was something as trivial as a book. In her anger, she drew her katana and tossed the book into the air. With a swift motion, she swung the katana, releasing all her pent-up frustration. However, instead of cutting through the book, the blade merely knocked it toward the wall. When Naruko picked up the book, she saw that it was undamaged, not even a single scratch on its surface. Her frustration flared again, and she channeled her chakra into the book. To her surprise, the book lit up, revealing intricate patterns indicating it was sealed. Naruko studied the seals carefully, unable to decipher all of them, but she did recognize one symbol that resembled the one she had seen at the abandoned clan estate, a symbol associated with blood. She then cut her hand and smeared the blood onto the cover of the book. Naruko waited, and waited. Minutes passed, but nothing happened. Finally, unable to suppress her growing frustration, Naruko channeled more chakra into the book. This time, the blood on the cover seemed to sink into the pages, and there was a blinding flash of light. As if a key had been turned, the blood opened the book. And so, Naruko began to read. Dear reader, if you were able to open this book with both blood and chakra, you are a descendant of the Namikaze and Uzumaki clans. These two clans were once separate, only to be united through the bond of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. Kushina Uzumaki was my beloved wife. She had a unique appearance and personality like no other. She glittered like gold in my eyes, shining brighter than the morning sun every day. Her voice was as beautiful as a song, and I swear, if I had placed her in the middle of the Third Shinobi War, all enemies would have laid down their weapons just to hear her sing. But her time in Konoha was long, and she yearned for her homeland. As Hokage, my responsibilities were many, and I couldn't leave the village to accompany her. I had many enemies, and some would have held Kushina for ransom if she traveled alone to the Whirlpool country. To keep her safe, I modified my Hiraishin. At the back of the Namikaze estate, near the fifth tree from the last house, there is a rock. Turn the rock 3 times, and an underground tunnel will appear. Within the tunnel is a seal on the ground. With the blood of a Namikaze and the chakra inherited from an Uzumaki, the seal will activate and teleport the user to a hidden location near a small town in the Whirlpool country. I write this as Minato Namikaze, the Yellow Flash, the Yondaime Hokage. Naruko closed the diary after finishing the first part and quickly skimmed through the rest. Most of it didn't seem as important, so she set it aside. Only the blood of a Namikaze and the chakra of an Uzumaki can open this book, Naruko thought. Could it be? Could I really be the daughter of Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage? The more she thought about the possibility, the more Naruko felt the urge to visit the abandoned clan estate, the Namikaze clan estate, to see if it truly belonged to her. Without hesitation, Naruko performed a shunshine and appeared directly in front of the clan estate. She drew blood from her hand and smeared it onto the seal at the entrance, stepping inside. She made her way to the fifth tree from the last house near the back, where a rock was placed on the ground. Naruko tried turning the rock, but it wouldn't move. Determined, she drew more blood and channeled chakra again. This time, the rock shifted, and the ground opened, revealing a set of stairs leading downward. She descended into the dark passage. As she walked down the stairs, the flickering of candlelight welcomed her, as if the place itself acknowledged her presence. Once she reached the bottom, the entire chamber lit up, revealing complex seals etched into the ground. I wonder if it's safe to use this, Naruko thought. If I really am the daughter of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, then this seal should work for me, as I have inherited their blood and chakra. With that thought in mind, Naruko left the chamber to prepare. Summoning 100 clones, she quickly packed, finishing in record time, even for someone as young as her. 2 hours later, Naruko was back in the chamber, loaded with supplies. She had packed mostly instant ramen and scrolls, which were stored within several other scrolls, creating one large scroll that she hung on her back. Drawing blood from her right hand, Naruko placed it at the center of the seal and channeled a steady flow of chakra. Instantly, she felt a sensation of weightlessness, as if the very gravity around her had vanished. In a flash, she was gone. Dear YouTube family, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more exciting updates. Thank you for your continued support. Best regards. 6 Path Weeb.